All right, this is Dylan Bowker with Sportskeeda MMA, and very excited to be talking to an individual competing at PFL 8, which transpires on August the 16th. And kind of catching this individual at an interesting time, just in the sense of there seems to be a bit of an opponent shift here. Brian
Mhm.
Stapleton going to be taking on Biaggio Ali Walsh, and good to have Biaggio on the Sportskeeda MMA platform to talk a bit about that and some other topics today as well. But just wondering how your day's going so far, Biaggio.
My my day is great. I had some training today, wrestled upstairs in a really hot and sweaty room. So it's nice to be home, showered and clean and ready to eat.
Yeah, no doubt, man. It's always satisfying to get in that bit of work and then be able to kind of come back and just enjoy those sort of things. But I kind of did
hmm
touch on it in the introduction there. Like you were supposed to be fighting Corey Taylor, but now it has shifted to Brian Stapleton. Like, what was the
hmm
timeline for the whole shift there transpiring, I guess?
Yeah, so I was, preparing for quite some time to fight Corey. And Tuesday after sparring, Ray Sefo is over at Extreme Couture. I see him all the time there. He came up to me and told me that he was out due to injury. So yeah, I was kind of nervous too because I- I don't know if we're going to be able to get a new opponent in a week's notice, and I don't want to wait to fight again. I wanted to fight in June, and then that got pushed to August. So I didn't want it to get pushed again. So I was really nervous about fighting a new or finding a new opponent, and luckily we got a guy, and yeah, and Brian Stapleton, and yeah, super excited now.
Yeah, because it did seem like you were still involved in certain PFL activities, and as far as like it seemed like you were doing some media work with like the PFL MENA series,
hmm
but I imagine you want to get out there and keep competing, and that would seem like the primary passion under the PFL
Absolutely.
umbrella.
Yeah, PFL MENA, going out to the Middle East was an amazing trip. It was so beautiful out there, and going out there and not fighting, it was almost kind of like a like work slash vacation. It was really nice. It was dope promoting it, and I hope to be back out there soon.
And it seems like your, I guess, attitude with this whole situation is like very positive. Like it just seems like you're more focused on the fact of like, oh, this didn't slip through my fingers in a sense. Like obviously it wouldn't have been your fault, but the ability to just get out there and compete and actually have that locked in opponent. So I guess
hmm
in kind of saying that, like, is there any kind of thought to like your motivations or I guess rather your methodology having to I guess shift towards Brian Stapleton, or is the primary focus just always on what your game plan is and just I guess being adaptable to whatever your opponent
Yeah,
might do?
yeah. The primary focus is to go in there and whoop someone's ass. I was planning on doing that with Corey. Now it's Brian. So, the fight game. This kind of stuff happens in the fight game. This has happened to me when I was an amateur, where some guy pulls out, and then I'm like, oh, I want to get a new opponent. But yeah, it happens all the time. But yeah, the game plan is always the same. Go in there and have fun and be myself. So the same mindset. It's the same with Brian. So
Yeah, no, good you were able to get that situated and stuff. And it seems like you've had so many, I guess, moments under these bright lights. Like, I guess you talk about like during some of the amateur fights, how maybe, I guess that was maybe a thought beforehand, like, oh, my opponent switched. Now I have to consider X, Y,
hmm
and Z. But I mean, so much of your experience has been in the smart cage, just with several of
hmm
your amateur fights having taking place there too. Like, how has that really kind of benefited your, I guess, refinement curve? Just even like back in a lot of the amateur kind of outings, there fighting under an umbrella and just a promotion really in general that
of
attracts so much
course.
attention. Yeah.
Oh, it's I'm super grateful to just be in the position that I'm in. What amateur signs with the PFL and gets to fight on that kind of platform? My teammate Julian Arosa, who's in the UFC. He was telling me that he was in the regional scene for a long time, and it took him a long time to get on the UFC and fight on that kind of stage. And for me, as an amateur, to be fighting on that kind of stage so early in my career, it's like 10 years worth of experience, and that's what he was telling me. And it's true. It takes a long time for guys to be able to fight on ESPN and be on that kind of stage with the production, the cameras, the lights, the interviews. So to be able to get that experience so early on in my career, I mean, imagine 10 fights from now or 20 fights from now, it's gonna be as normal as going to the grocery store. So yeah, I remember before I signed with the PFL, I was very nervous because, it felt like my career was being rushed just because of who I'm related to, and that's not something that I wanted. But on the positive side, it's a great opportunity, and when you can take advantage of that great opportunity, eh, things can blossom, and I believe things are blossoming right now. So, yeah, everything happens for a reason. This is what was supposed to happen, and that's why it's happening. So, yeah, PFL has given me the platform to just get all this experience and you know, be a seasoned veteran. You know, Probably earlier than most guys, just because of getting these amateur fights on that kind of stage.
Yeah, it's just so cool to see. And you obviously alluded to your grandfather being Muhammad Ali. I mean, I've talked to different fighters over the years, and sometimes that can really almost like cast a certain shadow in a particular regard. Like, not necessarily in a negative way, but I guess like the
Hmm.
example I'm thinking of is like I've interviewed Robert Duran Jr., who's the son of Roberto Duran, and
Hmm.
he's kind of carving out his space in bare knuckle, so
Hmm.
kind of doing
Oh
his own
wow.
thing. But yeah, no, it's cool to see, man. And it seems like you're very much doing the same thing. I guess, like, just in a historical sense, I think it's cool because your grandfather was involved in that pivotal, like, proto MMA bout with Antonio
Hmm.
Inoki. So to, like, see
Yeah.
you involved
Yep.
in something that he, like, really laid the groundwork for in a lot of ways is
Yeah.
just so
And that
cool to
was
see.
that was in 1976, I think. So it's almost, you can almost say he was a pioneer for MMA, because that was like the earliest crossover kind of. You got the boxer versus the wrestler. So yeah, really cool.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And I mean, just even like your last fight, like, I mean, obviously, in a general sense, you've shown the acumen in the stand up. Like, I think a layman individual would be like, oh, yeah, Muhammad Ali's grandson's got to have those hands. But it also seems like the takedown and pressure in your game is really something that came to the forefront, especially in the last fight and whatnot.
Hmm. Yeah, it was nice being able to show my grappling and my wrestling. I had, I think, four takedowns in that fight. And another good thing too is it went the distance. So I got the experience of going 3 5-minute rounds in a professional fight in my first fight. So I already know what it's like to go the distance, especially when the fight's more grappling and wrestling based. So yeah, at first I was like, oh, it was boring. It was a snooze fest. I don't like to be boring. I want to be exciting, but so many good positive things came out of it. So yeah.
And it's kind of interesting. I guess I'm just kind of wondering what the broader focus might be, just because like there's such defined lanes in the PFL. Like you can be part of that, I guess, like regular season cycle, but it almost seems like even through the amateur run, like you were kind of part of like their super fight division in a regard. Like I know they have that big super fight based card coming up in
Hmm.
October there. Like would the focus and I guess interest at one point be to kind of I guess immerse yourself within that regular season and playoff cycle, or is your lane almost being in that super fight division? Because I feel like you're one of the more known names, even though this is your second pro MMA fight in general.
Yeah. I think super fight, mega fight, small fight, doesn't matter. I just want to fight and get the experience. I just turned pro. I'm 1-0 as a pro, and yeah, I don't even care where it is. I just want to fight and get that experience and put on exciting fights for the fans. So, um, yeah, whatever happens, happens. Sometimes I'll be asked to be on a card or whatnot, but I always go back to my coach Dennis, and whatever he says, I'm like, yes, sir. So, he's been in the game for 30 years. I've been in here for a couple. So what do I know more than him? So I always trust him, and yeah, God willing, I come out of this fight injury free. Who knows what's next? It'd be nice to squeeze in another one before the end of the year, because I think the championship card might be in Saudi in December. So yeah, maybe I could squeeze another one in, or wait till December. It doesn't matter. I just want to get that cage experience and fight.
Yeah, and I mean, I think your attitude has really served you well. And I mean, just like training at a space like Xtreme Couture, I mean, seems like such a
Hmm.
revolving door of elite talent. Like I saw you
Hmm.
with Mads Burnell and Patchy Mix in like a recent Instagram photo. And just, yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, I imagine like you just have such like elite level work there on a daily basis.
Oh yeah, I mean we get the best fighters in the world at Extreme Couture, and Extremes, it's an open gym. Like, we get guys, they come, and maybe their camp is fighting in the UFC, so some of their teammates want to get some work in. Extreme Couture always lets these guys in, get some good rounds. Maz is one of my main training partners, and he's one of the best in the world. Jeremy Kennedy, I work with him a lot. Manel Cape, that I work with him. And these are really high level guys. So just to get that kind of experience on a day to day basis, you step in the cage with someone who's not them, and it almost seems a little bit easier. You never want to take somebody lightly, but it's just great experience at Xtreme Couture. It was gym of the year for a couple years for a reason. So I believe we'll probably get gym of the year again this year.
Yeah, it's always been in that mix for sure, man. And it seems like just like going off of the namesake too, just, Randy Couture calling your fights now, like that seems like a thing that you're like, oh, wow, that's so cool. And I mean, you talk Race
Hmm.
FO being in the space too.
Hmm.
So I guess that's even
Yep.
another generational thing with combat sports. Just must be amazing to be under different learning trees like that and have those affiliations.
Oh, absolutely. Um, I always try to pick these guys' brains. Whenever I get the chance. Sean Strickland's there too. I always pick him. Um, and Sean. He's super brutally honest, and that's what I love about him. So I always pick his brain, and Patchy and Jeremy, Maz, like all these guys. So yeah, I'm super grateful to be at Extreme Couture, and it just I'm grateful. I can't. It's hard to find words.
Yeah, it's an incredible space, man. So good to see you're honing your skills there. But just with you being a lightweight, I feel like I'd, want to get some insights on just this lightweight focused event that you're on there, just with like both of these semifinal fights coming up. Like, I guess, how do you see things kind of shaking out in that sense for the remainder of the year? Because, I mean, we have Clay Collard against Brent Primus and Mikhail Dufort against Gadzi Rabadanov, which both incredible fights in their own regard. Like, is that something you're kind of like observing in a bit of a peripheral way, even? Like, obviously, you're focused on your fight in a paramount kind of way, but like, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on those fights there and how, I guess, the lightweight division has been kind of shaking out this season?
I think the lightweight division's a very exciting division. Not just in the PFL, but in MMA in general. The lightweights are doing their thing. Um, yeah, I think those are great matchups. I don't even know who wins. I've always been a fan of Clay Collard, so I'm gonna root for him. I know, my teammate Maz fought him and won, and I was helping Maz out for that. But I'm still a fan of Clay, and I hope he gets to win. So yeah, it's a tough matchup. I mean, it's the semifinals, so you got two really good guys fighting each other, so anything can happen.
Yeah, it's just so cool, man. I feel like that's one of the big divisions in MMA in general, as you said. I mean, just such a Shark Tank kind of division. And we were talking
Hmm.
before about just how your career has taken place under such bright lights. Like, I imagine being in such a deep division has also really informed the learning curve you've had as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. The lightweights that have a lot of talent, and I'm just super excited for the future. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I believe it's gonna be something really great, spectacular, even better than what I imagined. So yeah, it's super exciting. Um, but I'm just getting started. This is the beginning of the beginning, and it's a journey. It's a learning journey as well, and um, I'm just super excited for whatever's to come.
Yeah, and something, I mean, kind of curious to get your thoughts on this if you even have any, but like this kind of made some headlines for a bit a few weeks ago. Like, I'd seen Nico Ali Walsh was revealing that apparently a Jake Paul fight was offered to him. I mean, kind of thought that
Mm-hmm.
was interesting a little bit. Like, I guess, what were your, thoughts on that whole situation? Was that something you were privy to and whatnot, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, Jake Paul has called me and my brother out many times, but Jake Paul is a clout chaser. He's the first time he fought an actual boxer, he lost, and now he's calling out guys that are smaller than him. So, what sense does it make for me or my brother to go up in weight to fight him? If we gain 50 pounds, we're gonna be slower, and he won't be. So it just doesn't make any sense, and he's not gonna come down. So yeah, Jake, he does all the talking. He's only calling us out because of who we're related to. So yeah, he was offered that, but again, Nico was really great on the mic, and saying that, he is a real boxer. He doesn't want to become a part of the circus show of YouTube boxing and stuff like that. He's a real boxer. So yeah, I mean, he handled it very well, and it just shows that we choose principle over money. I think that could be inspiring as well. And that's exactly what my grandfather did. When the U.S. government came to him and was like, "You're going to war," he said, "No, I'm not. Take my belt, take me to jail, do whatever. I'm not. I say no." And he was sticking to that. So I think that's kind of something that my brother picked up from our grandfather, and that principle, and sticking to his belief, and being convicted in that belief as well. So yeah, it's just the same thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say you strike me as a guy too that would be, I guess, more mindful of wanting to like advance within your respective division instead of maybe even taking like some kind of almost like novelty fight. Like I feel like if PFL was like,
Yeah.
oh, like he's talking about maybe wanting to do MMA, like do you wanna, step
Do you
into
want to
the
fight a
cage with him in
streamer?
that sense? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't fight streamers, I don't fight YouTubers, I fight trained professional fighters. And that's what my brother was basically saying on the mic. So, yeah, I mean, it's it's probably going to be said again. Who knows?
Yeah, it's just interesting because I was reading this interview that you had done with the Olympics website, and like obviously, your grandfather had such a great legacy with the Olympics, having been a gold medalist previously. Like, I just kind of thought that was cool. Like, is there a certain attachment you have in a way to the Olympics, like in as far as like keeping up with them or following them, or kind of having some connectivity to your family lineage or anything like that?
What's crazy is this year I haven't really seen much of the Olympics. Um, I saw that USA won, and I think it was the 100 meter. That was pretty cool. I could be mistaken, but that was really cool to see. But I haven't really been keeping up with the Olympics. Um, Usually I go, I train, I play video games, get some Uber Eats, and relax and watch fights. Study guys like Jose Aldo and GSP, all these guys. That's kind of what I do on my day-to-day basis. I haven't really kept up with the Olympics this season or this year.
Yeah, so that's like the primary way you kind of, I guess, engage in downtime, like a lot of like studying fighters and then kind of like the video game component to sort of
hmm
unwind. Like, is that mostly what you're getting up to when you're not honing your own skills?
Absolutely. I'm a student of the game. I like to take notes. I like to watch certain things, and you'll never be able to fully emulate another fighter. But what you can do is it's an art. You could take certain tactics that certain fighters, some of your favorite fighters do, and then start to implement it into your game. And then you go to the gym, you try it out, see what's working and what's not, and what you're most comfortable with and what's not. So that's what I love so much about the sport. It really is an art. You could take certain things. If you're a painter, you could look at Andy Warhol or Da Vinci or Picasso, and take certain line work or color work out of them, and implement it into your own painting. So it's the same thing with the sport that I'm in, and that's usually what I do on my downtime.
Yeah, no doubt. And I guess kind of going off of that, like what's the ideal picture you're looking to paint on August 16th with this proverbial canvas in this upcoming Brian Stapleton fight?
I'm always looking to paint the same thing. Get a knockout. Um, Honestly, I always prepare for a 3-round war. That's the mindset I have going into every fight, is just going in and having a 3-round brutal war where I'm bloodied and cut up, and my opponent's bloodied and cut up, and kind of like that Robbie Lawler and uh what was his name? Rory
Rory McDonald?
McDonald.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I always have that kind of mindset going into every single fight. I'm expecting that this fight, but who knows? I just know, I'm very confident I'm gonna win and put on an exciting fight for the fans.
Yeah, well, your track record certainly speaks to that. And I'm sure there's a ton more questions I could ask you, Biagio, but I do want to be mindful of your time and schedule. It's been great getting to talk to you, though. I guess I figured I'd kind of give you the floor, though, in case maybe there was a final parting thought you were wanting to add as we're sort of wrapping things up here, man.
Yeah, August 16th, Friday night. If you're not gonna be there, go on ESPN. Watch. I'm the first fight on the main card, so be sure to tune in because it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, you definitely always bring that, and I'll certainly be tuned into PFL 8 to see this Brian Stapleton fight. And like I said, goes down August 16th. And just really wanted to thank you for climbing on the Sportskeeda MMA platform here with me. And just, yeah, to reiterate, looking forward to peeping the fight. But until then, you have a good rest of your day, man. And thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day as well.